What's up, SVSers? Welcome to the 89th edition of the SVS Audiophile Happy Hour. Hard to believe we've done 89. That music makes me kind of feel like I'm entering a spa session, and this is very
I fell asleep
therapeutic
during the warm up there.
Yeah, well, that's all right. We'll get that mixed up, but of course, I'm going to try. And I have my colleagues here. We'll talk about the format of the happy hour in just a minute. But to my right or left, depending on where you're looking from, Gary, our president. How are you, Gary?
We haven't done this in such a long time. It's really great to do this. And this is a full-on, almost 60-minute lightning round, right?
Yeah, we're going to get into some, news and events around the audio world, but then we'll get into some Q&A. So get those questions ready. Our man Eli is working behind the scenes to capture those questions, and we'll answer them live. And we will get to that in just a little bit. And helping us answer some of those questions is our Director of Technology, Ed Mullen, just below me. Ed, how are you feeling, my friend?
Well, I'm recovering from elective surgery, and it's always a struggle, but I'm making good progress. Thank you.
Well, you're looking great. I know you've lost some weight, whether that was intentional or not, I don't know, but you're looking fantastic.
Medical issues agree with you, Ed. You look great.
Yeah, well, when you're on an IV for 5 days without solid food, you tend to lose a little bit of weight.
Light on your feet, light on your toes. Well, of course, we have Larry Magoo, our Director of Director of Training. Nice to see you, Larry.
Howdy, everybody. Good to see you all. I'm in San Francisco this week, so don't mind the hotel room behind me. Good to be with you guys.
3 o'clock. So are you going to crack a beer open, Larry, at 3 in the afternoon?
After we are done here, I'm going to go get some food and go to a movie. So, yeah.
All right. That's fun.
What are you going to see?
28 years later.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, we'll get to our recommendations.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
We have some housekeeping to cover. As we always do on the happy hour, we are going to be doing some giveaways this evening. All you have to do to be eligible is leave a comment. And I'm seeing comments from Raleigh, from Tampa, from Chicago, from all over the place. So all of you are eligible for the giveaways. Ask questions if you'd like. We'll try to get as many answered as we can. And we'll be announcing the winners live on the air. One comment gets you one entry. A million comments does not get you a million entries. But of course, if you have a lot to say, we don't mind seeing you share your comments. And Larry, do you have what those giveaways are this evening?
I do on this other screen right here, so I can read from that pretty easily. So we've got 3 awesome giveaways, as Nick said. The first one's going to be a pair of our Prime bookshelf speakers, followed up by an SB 1000 Pro subwoofer. And then to end it all off, we're going to give away a PB 1000 Pro subwoofer. So some really cool giveaways for you all tonight. So just comment, have fun in the chat, and learn.
And I'm loving the chat. I'm seeing so many different locations here. So great to see people.
Really good energy on the chat.
Yeah, we've been traveling quite a bit. So we've got to meet a lot of you in person, which is just awesome. And we'll get to some of our upcoming events as well. But of course, we have to make some recommendations since it has been a while and there's a lot of fresh content out there. Larry, I'm going to start with you. I think you already said where you're going tonight. So recap that and then any other recommendations you want to give.
Yeah, you guys know if I'm on the road by myself, I'm typically at a movie at night, and I've been seeing a lot. We were in LA and now this week here and next week. So I've been watching a lot on planes. But the one that surprised me the most recently was Ballerina. Saw that in Dolby Cinema while we were in Los Angeles. And man, it will be a reference disc when it comes out for video and audio. It's fantastic. There's this flamethrower scene that I know we are going to be playing like crazy whenever that comes out. Andor, whenever that ended, I don't think we've had a show be able to talk about that. It was fantastic. So How to Train Your Dragon last night. Enjoyed that one too. 28 years later tonight, watch The Predator, Killer of Killers. There's so much stuff. And then
I want to see that. Is it good?
Yeah, it's on Hulu, so you can just watch it,
Disney
at home.
Plus, right?
Yeah, so I watched that on, I think, the LA flight last week. So a lot of the watching I'm doing has been on iPads, on my headphones while traveling, and then go and listen to it at home. But excited for a lot of stuff that's coming. I'm going to see F1 next week when I'm in Miami. So there's a ton of great films. Mission Impossible a few weeks back. So I'm just enjoying everything that's going on.
I am excited for our first flamethrower demo. That sounds like it's going to be fire, and that's a terrible joke, so I'm sorry about that. Let's go with Ed. You've maybe had some time to watch some things. What do you got for recommendations?
Watched binged Mobland with Tom Hardy,
Cool.
Brosnan. Really good. Enjoyed Mobland. It definitely has a Guy Ritchie vibe to it, and it's violent, but I think it's well crafted and directed. The acting's fantastic. Tom Hardy anchors the show, in my opinion, and I recommend it.
Very good. And Gary, I know you've seen some live music and have some on tap as well. What do you have for recommendations?
So I don't really have any new music, but I did watch a couple of shows that I thought were good. And now I'm going to get the name wrong. The Robert De Niro kind of doomsday one, 0 Hour, 0 Day. Do you know? Zero
He's
something.
president,
You'll find
right?
it on that.
I know
That's
you're talking
actually
about.
a really good demo, really good Dolby Atmos soundtrack. And this is an older one, but I actually was really struck by it, the production values. It's on Amazon Prime, and it's called The English, and it's kind of this Western thing with, gosh, I'm so bad with names. The
That's
lady
Emily
who was
Blunt,
in
right?
A Quiet Place. What's her name?
Yeah, Emily Blunt. Yeah.
Emily Blunt. She's terrific in it. But there's all these beautiful Western landscapes, and the sound is good. So I'll recommend that one. And I did see a show that I'm still on a bit of a high from. Monday night, I saw Wynton Marsalis Jazz at Lincoln Center.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know how much they tour. They do it, there's a New York-based thing. They just get on a bus and come to DC and do it a couple times a year. But I thought that was just absolutely spectacular. They're really on their game, and even got to hang out with Wynton after the show a little bit. That was cool. I got a hookup to do that, and he really liked my wife, Sylvia, and actually told me that I was very lucky and I better count my stars of being a lucky guy. So I think he was a little bit enamored of Sylvia. That was a great experience.
That is really cool. I had an interesting Father's Day. My family, I'm a big Van Gogh fan. I read his 6,000 page biography, and they have this traveling immersive Van Gogh exhibit. So I went to Worcester, Mass, and I saw the immersive Van Gogh. The visuals of it were absolutely stunning. They have this 360-degree visual experience. And I would have loved to have some SVS gear in there, because they had fake voices that were supposed to be Van Gogh talking, and they had other acoustic elements, but they just didn't have the immersive quality as the video. But still, I learned a few things, and it was a cool VR experience that went along with it. And we all got posters and stuff. So I got my Van Gogh exhibit, which was cool. I've been watching The Pit based on a recommendation from Larry here, which is sort of not a spinoff, but kind of like ER. Very fast paced, lots of emergency room activity, and supposedly pretty accurate, according to the nurses I know who work in those settings. They do a pretty good job of matching up the lingo and things like that. And again, it's a great one to watch with a significant other, because it moves fast. And it just has a lot of interesting cases, I guess you could say, with people coming in and out and characters that are in this emergency room. And it all takes place over the course of, I guess, 12 or 8 hours. Every episode is a different hour of the day. So kind of a cool concept there too.
It's intense.
And then it is.
Be prepared.
It's very intense.
It is
intense.
intense.
Very quickly. Yeah. And it's on Max, so they can show a little bit more than they could ever show in ER as far as some of the graphic qualities of it. I'll also be seeing Wu-Tang Clan in Boston in a few weeks, and I've been listening to their album Black Samson in expectation that they're going to play some of their new music, but it is supposed to be their final tour, and I've obviously been a fan for a very long time, so this will be the first time that I actually get to see them live, and probably the last time. So check out Wu-Tang, see if they're coming near you. Maybe the last chance you get to hear them ever. But that's what I have on tap as far as recommendations and future concerts. Now, there has been some sad news in the world of music recently, and a couple of passings that I wanted to mention, and maybe get Gary's thoughts on. One being Sly, from Sly and the Family Stone, and I had not realized how influential he was in the world of music, kind of knowing his big songs. But maybe reflect on that for a minute, Gary, in terms of what Sly meant to you and just to the world of music.
Well, Sly Stone was we're going to talk about Brian Wilson too, and I was never I never connected that well to the Beach Boys music. Maybe because I'm the last person from a surfer. You don't think of me surfing, I don't think, or you know, that it's very happy music. Sly Stone, on the other hand, that was something that was introduced to me when I was in college, and we were listening to all this kind of, you know, cool, you know, Grateful Dead and, you know, Rolling Stones and stuff like that. And Sly Stone totally blew through all those boundaries of you know, kind of Motown versus rock and roll pop music. He just obliterated all the boundaries. And I absolutely, with no reservation, recommend everybody should hear, if you haven't heard it, the album called Stand. It is just awesome. There's not one weak track on it. And I think it influenced musicians all the way to the present day. But you certainly cannot think of Prince without Sly in the Family Stone. You can't think of Red Hot Chili Peppers, Wu-Tang Clan for sure, Kendrick Lamar. I can see a direct line. But the music, you know, yes, he was influential, but the music in and of itself is great. People will enjoy it. And it does not sound dated at all. So check out Stand. And if you get deeper into it, then there's a couple others. There's A Riot Going On, which is darker and fresh. So enjoy.
Yeah, and if you listen to it, you'll realize how many artists sampled his work, you know, because he's got some of the most sampled
100%.
tracks out there, you know, and it'll surprise you where it's like, oh, that wasn't original to whatever artist it is. But that was definitely something I picked up, you know, listening a little bit more. So you already mentioned the other passing that we had recently, Brian Wilson.
I'm going to give you another one besides Brian Wilson.
You're going to give. They always come in threes, which is weird.
They come in. Well, I don't know if this is coming in threes for everyone, but for me it is, and I'll explain. But first, we're going to talk about Brian Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Wilson. I think most people know him, you know, from the Beach Boys as sort of his main act, and you know, I think he's done some other things. But you know, my few factoids about him, because I just did some research today, didn't know how to surf, didn't like surfing, didn't.
None
like
of the Beach Boys surfed except one.
Yeah, and they didn't even like the beach, which I thought was interesting. But he was also a pioneer in some of the instruments he used, one of them being the theremin. Does anyone here know what a theremin is?
Nope.
You don't know what a theremin is?
Before the show.
I figured nobody would. It's an instrument that you don't even actually touch to play. You just kind of wave your hands around nearby, and it makes different kinds of noise. This is what it looks like. It's kind of this. Let's see if I can get it on here. You guys seeing that? Oh, wait, no. There it is. So it's this electronic thing, and you kind of wave your hand around it, and it makes like, you know, electronic noise or something. But anyways, I think I'm getting a little off topic here. He's
no, I think
he's obviously a legend.
You know, you're capturing some things about him that are interesting. He both Sly and Brian Wilson had severe mental health issues. Sly, most of them, I think, self-inflicted, which is sad because you know, he just basically stopped making music. And I suspect, you know, I don't know the guy, or didn't know the guy, but I think it was because of drugs. Brian Wilson, on the other hand, kind of just went nuts and got some bad medical help. I won't get into all that stuff, other than to say he had too much anxiety to go on tour with the Beach Boys, so he would camp out in the studio and do just wild stuff in the studio. And he heard the Beatles album Rubber Soul, and it changed his perspective. He went into the studio and he made the Beach Boys, now thought of as their masterpiece, called Pet Sounds. And Paul McCartney heard Pet Sounds, and that inspired him to do Sgt. Pepper. So it kind of tells you what an interesting time the 60s were. They were just pushing the envelope of music and challenging each other. And Brian Wilson was very much in the conversation with the ones that, you know, we think of as the leaders of the 60s, the Beatles, Jimi Hendrix, the Rolling Stones. He was right there with them.
Absolutely. I actually, one other recommendation I would have, there was an older biography done on George Clinton and the P-Funk All-Stars that I think was originally done on PBS, but they just started putting it on some of the streaming networks. That's a really interesting look back on how they were an evolutionary force in the world of music too. with how they sort of created this subculture within the world of funk, and then branched off and had all these different groups that sort of were affiliated with it, but also very interesting. And you mentioned you had one more, Gary, that may be germane to the conversation. What was the?
So I think for the SVS community, I do want to talk about this one. 2 days ago, Alfred Brendel died, and he was one of my 2 or 3 most favorite classical pianists. What I love about him is he was not known for his technique. He was known for his incredible understanding of the music he was playing. I really want to recommend, if you want to learn a little bit about classical music and you feel daunted by it, let me recommend that you search out, and it's in Qobuz, so I assume it's everywhere. Alfred Brendel with Academy of St. Martin in the Fields doing the complete Mozart piano concertos. They are sent from heaven. They're incredible. None of them are slouches, but the later ones are just unbelievable. Particularly would point to the C major concerto, which is piano concerto number 21. But he also was known as a great interpreter of Beethoven and Schubert, and all the recordings are really, really good. So they're an outstanding demo. Larry and Nick, you may not know it, but when I'm playing piano and orchestra, that's what I'm playing in those trade show demos that we do. I'm playing Alfred Brendel with Academy of St. Martin in the Fields, and they sound totally awesome. So that's this is a guy I admired deeply. Saw him live in concert several times before he retired. He died at a ripe old age, but just a really, really important musician in my life.
Very cool. Well, I will have made a note of that. And you know what? Classical I generally put on as background music. I don't do it as immersive listening, but definitely want to check that out.
I think Mozart's piano concertos are really easy to enjoy and appreciate. So that's a great place to start.
Now, you've also been dabbling with your Apple TV and some of the new Dolby Atmos music. Is that correct? And it's something we may actually try to bring with us to some of our upcoming events, which we'll get to in a minute here. What sort of led to that, Gary? You were sort of just experimenting with your son or something?
Say this again now? Oh, you're talking about that? This is actually a good story. Well, I guess the SVS community will decide if it's a good story. Hopefully nobody's going to get bored. I was invited along with a Consumer Technology Association audio division board, on which I serve, I should say, to the headquarters of Dolby Labs, which is in downtown San Francisco. And they took us to this insanely over-the-top, multi-million-dollar theater. And Dolby obviously invented Dolby Atmos. So they wanted to show us Dolby Atmos music in this theater. And my jaw totally dropped as I saw what the work they were doing in Dolby Atmos. So I got home, and within a few weeks, I wasn't subscribing to Apple Music, but I did because I heard that was the best way to do Dolby Atmos music. So I added Apple Music to my many subscriptions that I have, sadly, and started experimenting with Dolby Atmos music. I was even seeing in the chat, I think people are getting interested in it because even before the show started, people were talking about it in the chat. And I agree with the person who recommended you really want to have an Apple TV in order to do it. The Apple TV will do Dolby Atmos, and then you can just basically go through your favorite recordings, and some of them are going to be in Dolby Atmos. And in some cases, the Dolby Atmos really adds to it. And I'm not going to say what demo we're going to do, but in our next event, we're going to do a demo where it literally makes the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. But I don't want to say it now. We're going to do it. So SVS community, hopefully you'll join us in Omaha when we do that demo for Nebraska Furniture Mart.
And just to be clear, you do need to have an Atmos speaker setup. If you're playing this through like stereo, you're not going to get any impact from, you know, the three-dimensional.
I think it
download
works with
stereo.
Apple Spatial Audio, so you'll get some effect if you do it, but it's not, no, you want to have an Apple TV and a full-on home theater. And the receiver obviously needs to be Dolby Atmos capable.
All right. Well, we mentioned some of our upcoming events, and I did want to throw out a thanks to the folks who visited us at the Home Entertainment Show in Costa Mesa. Loved seeing a bunch of you there. Munich, I'm not sure if we've done a broadcast since Munich, but I saw Xavier, who I met in person there. Also, thanks to Joe K, who's did an install with SVS speakers in a retirement community, and it's like the best home theater in a retirement community I've ever seen, and maybe one of the only ones, but kudos to those people. It's a 6 setup with like 4 subs. So I see all you commenting. Thank you for joining us tonight. And it was great to meet a lot of you as well. We do have some upcoming events, and I'm just going to.
I'm seeing that Fire, the Amazon Fire thing works with Dolby Atmos. I did not do, I have to say, I did not do extensive research on what devices support it. But I know that Apple TV does support it, and I've heard it's the best for it, but I can't testify to that.
Good to know. I didn't think Fire did it because I have the Fire stick.
There's a couple comments where people said,
yeah, it just depends on which one you have.
Cheap thing. If it works, great.
I may need to upgrade. Well, in-person events, for those folks, we are going to different areas of the country here, and all you got to do to get to our event is hover over the blog here, and you'll see SVS events. Click on that. We have 2 of our Sound Revolution Experience events coming up, both with $10,000 system giveaways. So these are really cool events where we do live demonstrations, a presentation, multiple systems that'll be set up. And our first one will be in Omaha, Nebraska. I saw some Omaha people there in the comments. So just come over here, click over, free events. We really have a great time with these, get to meet a lot of you folks in person, because we get so many people coming up saying that they've been part of the Audiophile Happy Hour. So it's just cool to make that full connection. So we have one coming up in Nebraska Furniture Mart in Omaha, another one at Gramophone in Columbia, Maryland. Then we have an Audio Advice live event. This is a huge show in Raleigh, North Carolina, where we'll have a system set up as well as with a bunch of other manufacturers in downtown Raleigh. And then another one of our Sound Revolution Experience events at one of our favorite partners, Worldwide Stereo in Montgomeryville, Pennsylvania. And a couple more are in the works as well. But we also have some big plans for Capital Audio Fest later this year in November that we're working through now. So just visit the event page. We'll keep this up to date with all the things we have coming up as far as events and places we can hang out with us in person. But I believe we are due a giveaway, and I don't want to fall too far behind on that. So our first giveaway of the evening is going to be a pair of Prime Wireless Pro powered bookshelf speakers. All you need to do is add your smartphone. You got a legit hi-fi system. Winner of that is Tim Pittman. Tim Pittman, congratulations. You got yourself a
congrats.
pair of powered speakers. All right. Are we ready for some Q&A? Ed, I hope I'm not putting you to sleep. You got to get ready for some rapid fire here because we're coming at you fast.
I've really been enjoying the back and forth, learning some
I know
stuff.
the comments.
We've been
great.
watching the commentary too.
Yeah. I'm trying not to get too distracted, but I'm going to direct this first one to you here. Thomas D. Thomas D asks, I can answer this one. Will SVS ever offer financing on their products? Sorry, that's a quick one. We do. Just go to our website. When you're checking out, you'll be able to see the financing. So easy one there. Now, Ed, Tommy A wants to know, will elevating a subwoofer potentially mitigate a null in the room? I know placement's important, but elevating it, will that actually potentially help mitigate a null? And maybe say what a null is first.
A null is a standing wave cancellation point. The subwoofer has direct waves, and it also has reflected waves off all the walls. At some points, they cancel each other out, and we call that a null. At other points, they reinforce each other, and we call that a peak.
So just for everyone to understand who's not necessarily as versed as Ed, a null means the bass got sucked out and you don't hear it at certain frequencies, and right. A peak or what's the other word for that? That's a standing wave, right?
Yeah, cancellation or null.
Right. A peak means you're hearing too much bass at certain frequencies, and this is because of reflections. And the way you can change those problems is by moving the subwoofer around. And this user is very smartly asking, what if I just move it upwards in the room? Ed, what do you say to that?
Well, there is a standing wave pattern between the floor and the ceiling. So the answer to that is yes. If you elevate,
It could help.
It could help. If you elevate the
Not
subwoofer,
guaranteed to help, but it could help.
not guaranteed, but it could help. You'll often notice if you're sitting and then stand up, the bass will change, even if you don't move forward or backward. And that's because you're moving your head through the standing wave pattern from floor to ceiling. So the sort of the converse of that would be to elevate the subwoofer, and that would shift the standing wave pattern relative to your seated location. So the short answer is yes, you can try it, and it may result in a better looking frequency response.
So get your sub a high chair, and it might help mitigate your nulls. There you go. Good to know. All right. Larry, what AVR and or front end components do we use at audio shows, and why?
Well, I won't say exclusively, but when it comes to home theater receivers, we do tend to use the Denon and Marantz product line. Most of us own that personally as well. And part of the reason for that is regardless of where their product line is, they're consistent to set up and have a really great, just kind of neutral sound, aren't adding or taking anything away. And working with Odyssey is really nice. And then for 2-channel, we've been using Hagel H400 2-channel amps, and really like their sound with our speakers and just general great quality amplifier. But we've used all kinds of stuff, so I don't think we're going to discourage any product out there. There's 1 or 2 brands that we really love, and then a couple that we would maybe request something else, but we're not going to throw them under the bus.
Well, what we like to say is we're not SVS is not fussy about what it's hooked up to, but we do benefit, just as any great audio product does. It benefits from the quality of the ancillary gear it's connected to. So, Larry has been famously made some really great sounding home theaters with a mid-fi, Denon or Marantz receiver, and even even though we're trying to impress people in a trade show environment or in a consumer event, it works. But when we upgrade it, you hear the benefits. And that Hagel, I think, is a really neat piece because it's not insanely expensive and sounds really, really good and has a built-in DAC. So it has a lot of great qualities. Audiophiles have embraced that brand. I just saw the Absolute Sound, which is a very fussy audiophile magazine that loved our speakers, by the way. I just saw a rave review on their top-of-the-line integrated amp. And this is not a magazine that likes integrated amps, which, by the way, for those who don't know, an integrated amp combines the functions of a preamplifier, which is sort of the control area and the powering of the line level sound, and the power amp in one chassis. And in the case of the Hagel, actually has a DAC or a digital to analog converter. So it's really a complete experience as long as you have digital music files or some way to stream.
And I actually think that's been part of fun of the journey is, we do these dealer events, we've done these trade shows, we've heard them with so many different pieces of equipment. And
Nick, who found Hagel?
And then, I just kind of came across Hagel, and it spoke to me. I hate that, sounds cheesy as hell, but like it was really just an experience where I'm like, I didn't know I could hear the difference as clearly as I could when I heard this Hagel. So that one, it's not always like that. Sometimes they're very similar. They're, warmer or a little bit more, takes the life out of it. But it's been fun kind of going through that with a lot of these events. And it's hard to find one that we don't like, though. But they just kind of all.
Well, I think Nick, I think you officially became a true audiophile when you came to me and you said, I am tired of hearing X brand with our product. I'm not going to say what X is. And I heard our stuff with this Hagel, and I loved it, and I could hear the difference so clearly. And I'm like, I felt so happy because Nick heard it for himself and knew he was right. That's a really important threshold to cross as an audiophile. And so
it was even better when all you really validated it.
Worked out great.
Yeah, when you all were like, "You're right," that's when I was like, "Oh, so I'm not just making stuff up here." But so that's what we'll be having at a lot of these audio shows that we do, and then we do the dealer events. We generally will feature what they have in some of their listening rooms, which sometimes is Hagel. We have a room size question. These are very popular, so I'll direct this one to you. JR wants to know, he has a 14 by 20 room. What tower speaker would be the best fit in that space? And the ceiling height is 7 feet. And this might be an it depends is coming here, but I know there's some general guidelines we give when people give a room size, and 14 by 20 with 7-foot ceilings. What tower speakers would you go for?
Well, you got to remember one thing. The biggest reason to choose a smaller speaker is visually. I mean, other than that, our towers all behave approximately the same, the three towers. I would say if you're going to, we've experienced this ourselves. Larry can definitely testify to this, as can I. When it's a room that's deeply challenged in terms of where you can put the product, you got to shove it up against a wall. We found that the smallest towers and the bookshelf speakers work the best. The Ultra Evolution bookshelf and the Ultra Evolution, what we call the tower, which is the smallest ones. But if you can get the speakers a little bit away from the boundaries, meaning the back and side walls, which in a 14 by 20 room you certainly would be able to, then any of our towers are going to work great. And you'll have more bass extension and more dynamics with the larger ones, but you don't have to. Ed, you want to add to that?
Well, I also would say that all three tower models are voiced very similarly, and they have a very similar sonic signature. So I would say playback level might come into this as well.
Yep,
if you're not pushing the system really hard, which would merit, as Gary's stated, merit greater dynamic output, you're not really sacrificing anything going with the tower, because it sounds so similar to the Titan and the Pinnacle. The bigger the room and the harder you push the system, the more you will benefit from the larger, more dynamic speaker.
Well said. All right, we have a question about the elevations. They're rear ported, and John wants to know, by having that rear port, does mounting them against the sidewall or directly against the ceiling without a lot of clearance for that port, will that cause any sort of distortion issues or performance things that you might?
I'll let Ed answer this, but I do want to clarify one thing about the porting of a speaker versus the porting of a subwoofer. Speakers are typically ported, and this is true of all SVS speakers. They're typically ported to create a resonant frequency that is that suits the design of the product, the crossover, the cabinet, the drivers, and so forth. It is not to pump a bunch of air through the port. It is more to create a resonant frequency of the speaker to optimize the sound of the speaker. So there's not a bunch of air flying out of the port in any of our full range speakers. So for that reason, even a ½ inch of clearance is fine for the ports in our speakers. This is not true of a ported subwoofer, which is blasting out a lot of air, and that's why our ports are so large on our subwoofers, because it's different. There's a lot of hearing of the sound coming through the ports. Ed, you want to add to that or disagree with me?
No, it's kind of funny. I had this exact question come through customer service not maybe 2 days ago, and the answer is there's no difference in performance between front ported and rear ported. With this speaker, as Gary stated, the tuning frequency of the porting system is much higher. There's not a lot of airflow coming out of it. We do it to optimize the sound quality and bass response. And we've tested it many times. That amount of clearance between the speaker and the wall is perfectly fine, and there's no downside or detriment at all.
All right, we got
Scott is asking, can your speakers be just a few inches from the wall? So this is a really good question, because the person asking the question about the ports is asking, hey, is this going to be a problem? Is the speaker going to blow itself off the wall? And the answer to that is no. But Scott is asking, is it okay to keep my speakers close to the wall? And the answer is kind of. It's not yes, it's not no. Yes, you could put it near the wall, but the best sound of an SVS speaker, for the most part, is giving them a little bit of air, getting them out from the back wall and away from the side wall, because then they will image beautifully. They will create this beautiful, seamless, convincing, and focused sound stage, meaning you can hear where the instruments are, but you can close your eyes and hear where the instruments are coming from at a specific point in space. And because they're not interacting too much with the boundaries, meaning the back wall and the side wall, they do that effortlessly. So, Scott, if you can get them away from the back wall and the side wall, they'll sound better, but you don't have to do it.
All right, we got a gear question, recommendation, and Larry, you are a physical media guru. So TJ wants to know, do we suggest a certain 4K Blu-ray player? Is the audio quality better on a high-end 4K Blu-ray or a PS5? What's your go-to?
And it depends on what you're trying to do. You know, if you're doing multi-channel audio discs and stuff like that and listening to music, there are better DACs typically inside the higher-end players. But, you know, if you're just like most of us and you're going to sit down and watch a 4K movie in the theater room and you're going through a receiver and you're on like a 55-inch television, a 4K player is a 4K player in many cases. So we use Panasonic, Sony, LG players across the board. You know, if you have the PS5 and it plays the discs, then it's a great player as well. I do tend to prefer the Sony and Panasonic players just because I feel that they have the best firmware since they're both involved in mastering the disc process. So they tend to not have issues with some of the disc releases that are out there.
Well, I mean, we see this over and over again. We get these high-end tweaky Blu-rays and then they can't play all the discs, which is very frustrating.
That's true.
It is. I won't call it out. There's a brand mentioned in the chat.
Don't call out the brand.
Yeah.
Only say nice things.
Yeah, we that is frustrating whenever you go to put a disc in. Like one of the more recent releases, there was a 4K release of the original Twister movie that quite a few players just wouldn't play for whatever reason. And to experience that really stunk. But in my home, I use Panasonic and Sony. On the road, we tend to use Panasonic and Sony, and we have LGs as well. And one of our LGs just got smashed on a trip, so we picked up a new Sony.
Same here, Larry. Panasonic and Sony in my system.
There you go. All right, here's a man after all of our hearts. Brian C. He has four PB17 Ultra Revolutions, and he wants to add 2 more, but his Anthem AV90 only has 4 subwoofer outputs. Is a mini DSP Flex Home Theater X the best way to run 6 subs, or 2 Y splitters? So I'm throwing a lot of jargon out here. He wants to be able to obviously split the output and have those 2 additional subs.
Is there going to be room for him to be in the room with those 6 subwoofers? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, maybe you can stack them.
Judge. It might be a large space. So is there any difference in terms of what you're going to get, whether you're using the mini DSP, and maybe explain what that is versus the Y splitters, which we actually have available on our site?
Well, he has 4 individual sub outs, so you can't turn 4 into 6. So I would say that probably the easiest way would be to connect to the 4 subs and then daisy chain off a pair of the subs to the other 2. So that would be
daisy chain meaning.
Or you could since we can level adjust the subs, you could Y out 2 of the 4.
You could.
And then you would have 6 hooked up directly to the receiver.
Yeah, I think
a Y adapter, just for, I know everyone knows, but maybe they don't. A Y adapter just allows a single RCA line level output to be branched into 2. So you certainly can Y out of a single adapter to 2. That's not going to result in a degradation of sound quality. 1 to 2 is not a problem.
Yeah, and I think another thing to take into account here will be the wire management in this particular system. Like if these other 2 subs are maybe going to be back further in a room next to 2 other subs that are already halfway there, as Ed was saying, just daisy chain. All of our subs have an in and an out, so you can go out of one to the next one. Or as Gary was saying, you can do a Y splitter at the actual source component as well. So we've done both. You know, we've been in large ballrooms where we didn't bring a 50-foot subwoofer cable, so we daisy chained off of one to go to the next. It works great.
And it would sound exactly the same.
And my other comment to that person is, can I come over and hear your system? Because I was just really curious.
Seriously. You may not have to leave your house to hear it if he's got 6 PB17s.
I know, right?
Hear it from your house.
Somebody said if he's going to go 6, why not go 8?
He's helping all his neighbors have bass, not just him.
Yeah.
He's got a ways to go. We have a customer who's got 12 SB17 Ultra Revolutions. That's the benchmark as far as I know. We actually did a featured system on our site of his system, so you can learn about him. And he did all the acoustic treatments and everything like that. But they're just subwoofers scattered throughout the room. And they've still got 6 or 8 seats in there. So fun times.
Before we get off that subject, someone asked, is there a signal drop using a Y splitter? The answer is no. The voltage is exactly the same at both branches of the splitter. So you're fine there.
But I would just do 1 to 2. I would not try to make it more than 2.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Original Robert wants to know, is it crazy to try and wire a subwoofer to a vintage 2-channel amp without a dedicated subwoofer output? Well, not anymore, because there's an accessory for that. Am I right, Larry?
You are. We have a high-level adapter, which will allow you to hook up speaker level outs. I don't know if you're about to bring it up on the screen or not, Nick, but a little bitty box. And allows you to go from like your left and right speaker out into the adapter and then give you a low level out to hook up to your subwoofer. Some other amplifiers may also have left and right pre-outs, which you can use. But if you have older legacy equipment, one of the things I love to say when I'm doing training is any one of our subwoofers will make any one of your speakers sound better. And if you have older equipment that you've never really had a subwoofer on, you can use the SoundPass speaker level adapter and go speaker wire in and then subwoofer RCA out. And it's just a great way. You can do stereo subs off of it. So you can do a left and right sub or just do a single, however you choose to do it. And it's a great piece, and it's pretty affordable to add that to any legacy system or a system that maybe doesn't have dedicated subwoofer or pre-outs.
And it's been
the guys worked very hard to make sure it was audiophile grade signal transfer. I mean, they really were. Ed can tell you he was very much a part of that to make sure that it was a really great sounding device.
Yeah, the components in there are just top notch with respect to tolerances and measured specifications, and also power handling as well. I think it's the best example of that style of device on the market. And it's been very popular. Audiophiles, I think, were waiting for a product like this so they could connect a subwoofer to their systems that don't have a set of variable line level pre-outs. And it's just opened up a whole new world for them to run subs.
All right.
I got it. Michael keeps asking this question, or Mitchell, about putting an SB5000 Revolution with his Klipsch soundbar. I just can't say, much as I would love to see that. The only way I would say do it is if you eventually plan to upgrade the soundbar to a full-on home theater, and then that would be your subwoofer for that. Otherwise, I just feel embarrassed to tell you to get that. I do think to match up to that Klipsch soundbar, our SB3000 would be a phenomenal match for that, and even much more than it usually would ever be connected to, and you would enjoy that. But if your path is to upgrade from the soundbar to a full-on theater, then yeah, get a 5000 Revolution. It's absolutely our best technology.
And also, I just wanted to add, there's a growing number of soundbars on the market that do not have a dedicated subwoofer output yet. And we've gotten creative lately, and we've got some workarounds for that. So if you're running a soundbar and you want to add an SVS subwoofer to the system, reach out to me in customer service, and I can give you some recommendations on how to get that subwoofer running in the system without a dedicated sub out.
All right. Well, we do owe a giveaway, and our next giveaway of the evening is going to be a SB1000 Pro subwoofer, and the winner of that is Ash Kesbeh. Ash, A-S-H, Kesbeh, K-E-S-B-E-H. Congratulations.
Awesome. Congratulations,
Ash. Subwoofer coming your way. All right. We have a AV receiver question here, And I don't know the answer to this one, which is not shocking. But Phil wants to know what's the difference between the speaker distance settings and delay calibration in an AV receiver. And
I can field that one. They're essentially the same thing. Most AV receivers will allow you to set a distance for each channel, and that in essence is a time delay. The channel which takes the longest to reach the listening position is the controlling variable, and then all of the other channels are delayed by different amounts, so they all reach you at the same time. So either you're entering milliseconds of delay or feet, but in essence, it all functions the same way. It is a time delay.
All right, good answer. Joseph S. wants to know, is there anything stopping him from having a second center channel to get a wider soundstage? He has an extra amplifier channel being given the same input-output as the original center channel. Anyone using 2 center channels? What's the efficacy of that?
I strongly recommend against doing that. I think it'll actually make things worse because they will basically cancel each other's ability to pinpoint where the center channel information is coming from. So it sounds good to say that, but it will not work well. I guess if you really wanted to, you could stack 2, but I wouldn't do it. Our center channel is very dynamic output, good low frequency extension. The subwoofer takes care of the rest. That's my recommendation, is don't do that. If you really want to just go all the way wild on your center channel, then you can get a full range tower speaker, which we've seen people do. But obviously, it needs to be that's never done unless it's a acoustically transparent screen that it's behind. I mean, you obviously wouldn't want to put a tower in front of your TV set because then you can't see, which is why center channels work well the way they are, or at least ours does. So I would say don't get 2 center channels, but if you're really that over the top, then you would want to have a 2-piece front projection screen situation, screen being acoustically transparent. Then you can put whatever you want behind the screen.
There you go. Physical media question, Larry. John K. wants to know, can you get Atmos music in physical media, or is it only available via streaming? And I would assume you can download it in physical media.
Yeah, there's a bunch of discs. There's a bunch of remasters that have been released. They're going to be Blu-ray discs or high-res albums that you can buy. I travel with NXS Kick that was remastered in Dolby Atmos, and it's pretty cool to kind of hear that stuff done that way. You know what? We should have Rory on again to talk about this pretty soon. But you can go on, if you search go to Amazon, search Dolby Atmos music disc, and you'll find a bunch. And you'll see a lot of discs are being remastered that way. A lot of albums are being done that way now. For the most part, your most accessible way to do it is going to be through Apple Music or Tidal. And I think those are the 2 best resources for Atmos music. And
I will say, I one night I was just for hours with my son, my younger son. We hung out in my theater, our main theater, and just went through everything I could think of that had Dolby Atmos music. And I would say 1 out of 4 was an improvement over the 2-channel in high res. 1 out of 4. The rest, I thought, actually we went backwards. It wasn't as good as the 2-channel. So this is something to play around with. It's not always better. It can be weird. I think it's subjective. That's my opinion. Your opinion might be different than mine, but I felt very confident that this was not. In certain things, it just wasn't better. It
feels forced, Gary, to me. Do you agree?
Pardon me?
It feels forced to me sometimes when I'm listening to it, like they're doing it for the sake of doing it.
There's that. But what I find with listening to music is you do not want to lose what's called the attack. You don't want to lose that sense of focused sound. And when you pull the original two-channel mix and move it around the room, sometimes you lose the attack and it stops being as compelling. So that's what, for me, that's what made it worse. In situations where they did it with love and they preserved the attack, which I'm going to do this demo, and then everybody will know what it is, and then I won't have a problem sharing it with you guys. But we got to keep it under wraps. I want to surprise people. This, to me, was done with such love, and it was so well executed that it worked better than the original. And there were a few like that.
Well, we'll have to maybe do a playlist and make recommendations, since we're going to be doing some demos of that, at least at Capital Audio Fest, and I think we'll be able to curate some good music from that.
Well, make sure Dark Side of the Moon's in there, because I think that is one of the best executed multi-channel recordings out there.
All right, we got our first track.
What was it, Ed?
Pink
Dark
Floyd.
Side of the Moon.
Of course, that would make sense. I didn't do that. I was never a big Pink Floyd guy, but I'll do that tonight.
It's amazing.
I'll do that tonight before the NBA game.
Yep.
No, maybe get something no, I won't go there. All right, we have a question about room gain. We want to know explain the relationship of room gain to maximize the effect of an SVS subwoofer. And essentially, room gain is like free bass. It's basically choosing the placement of your subwoofer.
Well, let's talk about
explain it a little better to boost the output and get deeper extension.
But you gotta explain what it is, and then explain why it's different with us. We try to do this to just be generally informative and not an SVS infomercial. But there is some element of how room gain is typically something you're going to hear with a sealed subwoofer. And what it does is essentially the subwoofer loads to the room and uses the room to increase its output more than it would have the way subwoofers are normally measured, which is out in a free space where you can stand 20 feet away from it because bass waves are so long. But the problem with room gain is if it's not tamed, it could be occurring at frequencies that actually create not distortion, but the wrong frequency response. It no longer is flat. It's now accentuated in certain frequencies, and so it's actually worse. SVS, because we have such sophisticated DSP, and most subwoofers sadly still don't even use DSP. We have extremely sophisticated DSP in our subwoofers, and we acoustically tune the room gain. So then, Nick, in that case, it is free bass because it's not contributing to less convincing sound. It's just using the room to deliver more bass and doing it in a way that does not jeopardize the flat frequency response you expect in a great system. Ed, did fix anything I said that you don't agree with?
Well, I would say our sealed subs in particular are specifically engineered to take best advantage of room gain. And as Gary said, the roll-off slope and the frequency response is meticulously crafted to take advantage of available room gain in the listening environment. And the result is not exaggerated boomy bass. It's just a natural extension of the frequency response. Our sealed subs in a room with decent room gain will actually measure flat to 10 hertz or even deeper, which is remarkable. As Gary said, when you measure it outdoors without room gain, that just doesn't happen. So for us to be able to take advantage of room gain and have that deep extension and additional output at the deepest frequencies is a real magic trick. And I don't think anybody does it better than we do with our sophisticated DSP.
Yeah, there was actually a filmmaker in Brazil who was putting a home theater system together. It was a YouTube video that we'll share on our social here in a little bit. But they achieved output down to what, 5 hertz, Ed? I know it wasn't like,
I think it was
max
8.
output.
I've lost count
8,
of the number of customers that sent me frequency response charts showing the strength of room gain with an SVS sub. And in fact, I just looked
yelling at me. Yeah,
I just looked at an SVS.
We should have rated it lower. We're conservative. That's how we do it.
Right. I just looked at an SB17 today, and it was literally flat to 10 hertz. and with no exaggerated boomy bass at all. And that is really remarkable.
Yeah. Bob Lindstrom wants to know, how can we do a traditional subwoofer crawl when subwoofers are 100 to 150 pounds? Well, the good news is you don't really have to move the subwoofer other than put it in one place. That's not moving much until you find the actual sweet spot for the sub placement. But I can answer, essentially, you put your sub in your main listening position, crawl around the room, or at least get your head somewhat close to, not standing level. And wherever that bass sounds the best, or the low frequency output is the cleanest and the best, that's where the subwoofer should go. And so you just have to move the subwoofer into the main listening position, and you really don't have to move it until you put it in the main.
Use furniture movers. So if you guys remember the sliders, just use those, put them under there. They will save your back. I do find it amusing every time I walk into the Magnolia stores. I can always tell where the 16-inch subs were, the SB16s in their store, because they would just slide them across the floor. And it's a different kind of flooring in there, so they always leave like tread marks, like somebody was doing donuts in there. So it's always pretty funny to see.
Yeah.
So use furniture movers.
So for subwoofers, Dennis wants to know, how many can you run off a single 15 amp circuit, and is there any difference between our newer 5017 Ultra Revolution and our previous models in terms of how many you can run off a single circuit?
Ed, have you ever come up with someone that or encountered someone that was actually had too many subwoofers for their circuit? I have not heard of this.
I saw it once. Somebody tried to run 4 off a single 15 and just turned it up to an obscene level, and it tripped the breaker. But 99.99% of the time, you're absolutely fine running multiple subs on a single 15 amp breaker.
We're talking about SVS here, by the way, because we have very sophisticated power supplies that are controlled partially by the DSP, so that there is a level of amplification that we are using where you have to think about the household circuit. It's the final frontier in some ways, because we don't want you to have to run a special circuit just for your subwoofer. We think most people won't do that. But we do engineer them so that that's not an issue.
All right, last question before we do our final giveaway of the evening. Brian wants to know, why does his friend's system sound better at lower volume levels when they both have a 5.1? Now, I don't know what brands they have or whatever, but why would one 5.1 sound better at lower volumes than another one? Any real? I mean,
I'll let you or Larry or Nick, you feel free to weigh in now that you are officially in the Audiophile Club. I think if it doesn't sound good at low levels, it's probably an indication that when you crank it up, it's overcoming some of its deficiencies just by blasting your eardrums. And so if your friend's system sounds better than your system at low volumes, it's probably because their system is better than yours. And I sure as heck hope, or you didn't do as good of a job setting your system up as your friend did.
I
just ran into this today. I'm out here in San Francisco, and one of the designers from Magnolia called me. He sold basically the exact same system for downstairs, which is kind of in an open concept living room, and then a theater room in this house that's upstairs. And it's almost the identical system. They've got 2 PB16s, one in each room. And he was calling me today. He's like, it's wildly different in the 2 rooms, same receiver, same speakers and everything. And then he started sending me photos, and it can be the room too. So it can be your room, it can be the way the calibration was done, it can be channel levels. There's a lot of different things that can go into that. So,
that's true. I didn't mention the room, and that's a fair point. And some commenters are calling me out that I didn't either. So I would agree.
I would also add that there are certain features in AV processors specifically designed to enhance the listening experience at lower volumes. Dynamic EQ from Odyssey and Dolby Volume spring to mind. They're designed to overcome our hearing deficiencies at low volumes and make it sound more natural. So it's possible that one of those AV processors did not have that feature and the other one did. So I wouldn't overlook that possibility as well.
That's a good question. There's a lot of useful information there that people can go check if they feel like they're not getting all they want at those low listening volumes. I was going to defer to just maybe it's a worse center channel, but everything you guys said definitely is germane. All right. Well, final giveaway of the evening. Before we get to that, we will announce our upcoming happy hour dates on that events page that I showed earlier today on our website. So we'll have a list of those upcoming dates here posted very soon. But at the very least, we'll have a live stream from Nebraska Furniture Mart on July 8th, Tuesday, July 8th. So we'll be going live then. Final giveaway of the evening is a PB1000 Pro subwoofer, and the winner of that sub is Christopher Richards. Christopher Richards, congratulations.
Ooh, congrats.
You got yourself a new sub. So everyone go watch the new Sly and the Family Stone documentary. Great piece. A lot of good recommendations we had tonight. And I thank you, gentlemen, for your time. And thank you for the awesome comments and everyone tuning in from around the country.
Yeah, thanks
Always
for the
appreciate
energy of the
show.
commenters. A really great
Yeah,
group
this is
of
great.
commenters.
We love the lightning rounds.
All right,
come to our
guys.
event. We want to meet you in person. But happy listening, all. We'll talk soon.
Good night,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.